The Strangers, Chapter 1. I was told that this was the worst horror movie of the year. And I have to disagree. I'm not saying that it's good or that the characters are smart, because they're certainly not. But to pretend that this movie is anywhere near as bad as The Killer Pool or The Killer Teddy Bear is insulting. At least this movie gets some genuine tension into the mix to make it feel like an actual horror movie. And this is basically what you'd expect from the original Strangers movie. You got a couple that ends up at some kind of secluded cabin. Some weird girl shows up asking if Tamara's there before they start getting psychologically messed with by three people wearing masks. Now, I will say that this is the type of horror movie that tends to get to me the most, that I still end up enjoying. The whole, we're just trying to mess with you, home invasion humans with no motives, all the tension that's thrown into that, it kind of messes me up. And The Strangers was always the really big one for me in that entire genre. I wanted to watch this movie so bad when it came out because I thought the story seemed really cool, but I couldn't, it was not gonna happen. It's funny because people constantly tell me they love watching my videos on horror movies because they either can't watch horror movies if they don't know what to expect coming, or they just can't watch them at all, but really love the stories and want to feel involved, so they have to watch my videos to kind of ease their way into the genre. And I used to be that person. Like, I was looking up the synopsis of different movies so I could like watch it and make sure that like nothing would jump scare me out, but the tension stuff, even when you know something's gonna happen, it's just a matter of how long it takes to happen, and that's how The Strangers gets you. And I definitely still have a little bit of that in my bones, and that's why like some of these style movies will still get to me a little bit, but it's hard for something to actually mess with me nowadays, so I'm glad that I can share the power with you. I also think it's something about the masks, especially the masks in this movie and in movies like You're Next. There's just something about the dead, beady little eyes and faces that it just throws me off. And honestly, to this day, I don't think I've actually watched the original Strangers movie from start to finish. I remember it came on TV once, like maybe a year after it came out, and I tried and I made it to a point I just had to keep jumping around from different stations because I just couldn't do it. And since then, I've caught a lot of moments of it, but I don't think I've actually sat and watched the whole thing from start to finish, even though I'm pretty sure at this point I've seen everything that's happened in the movie. So I was actually really looking forward to watching it for this video because I thought Strangers Chapter 1 was a prequel because they marketed it as a prequel, but turns out it has nothing to do with that at all. So that'll be saved for maybe some additional content at some point, because I do still really want to watch it. And I've also never seen Prey at Night, so somewhere, sometime that may happen. And that brings us back to Chapter 1, which you're probably wondering why it's called that if it's not a prequel, and that's because it is a relaunch, which is actually just a reboot, but they want to call it a relaunch. And the Chapter 1 comes because this is part 1 of a trilogy, and they've already filmed the other 2 parts because they filmed all of it at the same time to save costs. So whether or not this did well, those other 2 parts are coming some way, somehow. They were all supposed to come out this year, actually, but 3's now been bumped into 2025, so presumably so it can die with the other shitty New Year's horror. And while this movie has been poorly received by critics and audiences alike, it did make about 4 times its budget back, so good for them. It's always about being a glass half full. And I will give it some props for it being a cool 90 minutes, but our new Liv Tyler character is now Maya, played by the sometimes seemingly incestuous lesbian Scarlet Witch from Riverdale. And Scott Speedman's character is now Ryan, played by the love interest in that Cruel Summer show. And it's all a mess. But what's not a mess is today's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark VPN lets you connect to one of their thousands of different server locations all around the world so your internet thinks you're in that location. And that comes in handy when you're trying to watch things on streaming services that just aren't available in the region that you live. Say you're in the US and want to watch Talk to Me or Get Out, all you'd have to do is connect to a Canadian server location and you're good to go. In my case, I still haven't managed to catch anyone but you, and noticed a lot of people logging it from Netflix, so I did a quick little check, saw that it was in a US location, connected there, and boom, Rom-Com Sweeney. It also comes in super handy when I'm traveling to connect to streaming services that I use in Canada that aren't in other places, or to make sure that all of my YouTube Premium features work no matter where I am. And it's also my go-to when connecting to public Wi-Fi to help secure my data. So try out Surfshark for yourself. It's fast, secure, blocks unwanted ads, is available across unlimited devices, and if you use code JEDI at the link below right now, you can get an additional 4 months completely free. But let's dive into the movie, which starts with a suited guy running through the woods looking like he was told the Wolf of Wall Street was a literal creature with plans to hunt him down. Then after a very mild trip, he just completely completely gives up altogether as our favorite and most terrifying smiley Axeman lumbers in for the kill. Before cutting to violent crime statistics. According to the FBI, there are an estimated 1.4 million violent crimes in America each year. That's one committed every 26.3 seconds. 7 since you've been watching this film. They're calling it a film. Bold. This is the story of the most brutal. It is not it's not even close to being the most brutal. It's not very brutal. I'm not saying it's good, it's just also not that brutal. But I take great issue with them saying that this is based on one of the most brutal because they marketed the original Strangers as being based on a true story only to find that it was mostly inspired by a series of break-ins around the director's home when he was growing up. And then to round it out, he cited what happened in the Manson murders for the other part of the story. I know a lot of people like to link the Ketty murders because it does share some similarities, but not really, and I don't think that the original writer and director ever directly mentioned that. But this really bears so little exact resemblance to any situation that there's so many different instances in the United States that you could say, oh, that's kind of similar to what The Strangers did. Point being, this movie we're talking about right now is absolutely not based on a directly attributable real story. Either way, while they're showing these stats, we're also hearing a 911 call being made trying to get people to an Airbnb in Venus before we pick up with the lovely couple driving to Portland for a job interview. So she's the super smart architect and they make sure to let us know that he's the schmuck with really severe asthma. So I'm sure that's gonna be a problem. Future Amanda here turns out not anywhere near as much of a problem as I assumed. But they end up stopping for food in the small town of Venus, where we know that 911 call was made from, and it really doesn't seem super hospitable. I really thought the weird vibes from everybody was gonna shake into something different in this movie, but as far as I can tell, no. If it is, they've definitely waited until the next installment to include any of it. But most of this scene really amounts to revealing is that they've been dating for 5 years but haven't gotten married.
5 years? The hell are you waiting for?
Well, right now I'm just waiting on my turkey melt.
And as they're leaving, they see the poster of the missing guy who was in fact the finance bro. Incredible. And apparently he went missing not long after he stopped at that diner for food. And if you're wondering how they end up caught here overnight when that wasn't the plan, it's because their car, which was totally fine just before they started eating, is now totally dead, and conveniently the garage guy notices immediately.
Car trouble?
And much like the boyfriend, I assume that one of the local weirdos sabotaged the car while they were eating, either to get their money or their blood, but we don't actually ever find out. At least not in this installment. So much of them interacting with other people in this movie feels like them setting up for future movies, but not in a way that feels satisfying in the same way that they like set up things in Dune Part 1 for Dune Part 2. It just doesn't feel like it has any connective tissue and is actually pulling away from what made the original so chilling. And what actually annoys me the most is these little religious kids handing out pamphlets, which feels like a callback and slap in the face to the original movie where it's two little witnesses going door to door stumbling upon her near dead body. Now instead of it just being like oh my god, wouldn't it be so like interesting if we had like kids stumble upon the body? They're just these weird little set decorations, creepy kids that are gonna build into something more down the line, and I don't like that. What started as like normal door-to-door religious kids who probably shouldn't be doing what they're doing is now turned into something that feels like a possessed cult.
Are you sinners?
Aren't we all?
Again, just subverting so much of what worked so well about the original movie. But they won't be able to get the car fixed until tomorrow, but conveniently there is one guy in town that rents out his place as an Airbnb as long as it's not hunting season. Well, it's certainly gonna be hunting season for someone. So the waitress drops them off at the cabin for being good tippers, and we can tell that someone is already out there watching them. Also, if we're gonna take guesses on who the killers might be, if they're just like townsfolk people, I'm betting one of them is this waitress.
Fridge is out.
Would you look at that?
What?
A number to call if there's any problems.
Okay, why is she bothering to call someone to fix the fridge when it's already dark and they're only staying for one night? Even if someone could come through, what would it even matter? The only thing you have is beer, which you're planning to drink right now. But it's fine, no need to worry about cold beer when they have the joys of sinning.
The Lord will set you free.
The Strangers Chapter 1 is really looking to up the sex and horror quota for the year. It used to kind of be a staple, specifically in this genre of horror, that I feel has been missing from our last handful of installments, even the one that was loaded with a bunch of young 20-somethings-year-olds. But that's fine. I don't think I really wanted that aspect in tarot, and it really wouldn't have worked. But, you know, I just like to know where we're at tone-wise in horror, so it's fine here. But before they can get to it, the door knocking starts. So it's either actually the people here to start fucking with them, or it's the dude coming to fix the fridge and this is a fake out, and it is not a fake out. It is stage 1 of the stranger invasion. Is Tamara here?
Is Tamara here?
The classic. And no, she's not here. She's no one. Or it's like a joke that the other one's already in the house. I know that in the original that is actually based on Bertino's own experience with the series of break-ins in his hometown. Someone would knock and ask if a certain person was home as a cover for seeing if the house was empty. They realize someone's there, they move on to the next house. He wakes up the next morning to realize a bunch of houses have been broken into. Though very depressingly, I guess this trilogy plans to answer who Tamara is in their minds, so I really hate that. You're just really pulling away everything that made the original movie so chilling, guys. Then, even though this thing has clearly unscrewed the front porch light bulb to conceal her face, then just stands there creepily in the driveway when they're in the middle of nowhere and there's no conceivable way for her to have gotten here, they just go right back to having sex. I, for one, would have hunkered down, then started sleeping in shifts before we bail out as soon as possible, but they're not even concerned. Too busy talking about why they're not married. And I thought that might end up echoing some of the original movie, where one of the biggest points of contention was the issue in their marriage. No, turns out that she had just said early in the relationship that she didn't want to get married, but has since changed her mind, but never let him know. That's gone, that whole fun, that's nothing. It's nothing.
I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Well, I'm guessing that might not be an issue either way. But I guess the sexy times are a little bit too exciting, and he realizes that he doesn't have his inhaler and that they forgot it in the car. Good thing that he started a fire without a closed grill. I feel like we're just breaking a lot of the asthma rules here. But even though he needs it right now, it's not serious enough for him to not be able to go get it by himself on the motorcycle that's conveniently on the property with the keys still in the ignition. I don't know why she wouldn't go with him to make sure he's okay, or just to not be alone in this house after some creep was slinking around. This is just a really lame way to get her alone so they can echo what happened in the original movie, and it just doesn't work. As someone who had very bad asthma as a kid, no. But what somehow feels even more dumb to me is that she doesn't put her pants back on when he's gone. Just starts FaceTiming with a pal. Pants would have been the first objective, because of course someone continues to stalk around the house and slam on the door before disappearing again. And yeah, I'll admit, this stuff has me a little bit on edge. This is the stuff that unsettles me even when people are too stupid to care about.
Ryan? Ryan?
Really? You need to double check to see if that's your boyfriend and not someone else pounding on the door like a creep? Like, I would have been finding a knife the second that round of knocking started. You know, the second after I put my pants back on.
Is Tamara here?
And then just disappears. Like, literally the only smart thing that Maya does here is deadbolt the door. Like, whoever this is starts blocking the peephole so you can't see them. Call the cops. Oh fuck, oh shit, someone's in the house. Oh god. I feel like I really should have expected that, because I think that's roughly the equivalent of when I bailed out of the original the first time I tried to watch it. But why did she still doesn't put her pants on? Like, someone is clearly trying to fuck with you and you're just woman wafting around the place, continuing to drink? Not an ounce of self-preservation in this woman. Which is when she realizes her phone isn't where she left it, but oh, now it's just on the bookcase. I guess that could have been her, but then she starts hearing someone singing a lullaby.
Rock-a-bye, baby, on the treetop.
Meaning this girl from the front door is just circling the cabin being a fucking weirdo when your phone's in your hand. Why aren't you calling 911? But then they show her accidentally turning on the garbage disposal, so I bet that's gonna be a thing later.
It wasn't.
And as dumb as she's acting, this is still all very tense to me. Like, my body can't help but feel a little bit on edge, and I would hate if this was happening to me. Like, if anything where the point is like humans just messing with other humans for the hell of it with no other aim to the home invasion than psychologically torturing people, I can't handle it. But she starts hearing more noises from around the house. Instead of calling the cops, she tries to call Ryan and then opens the back door. You know that girl is lurking around singing lullabies, being a weirdo. Like, what are you doing? I wouldn't even be pulling back the blinds because I don't want to know what's out there. And then she just goes outside for a little peek. Like, what is wrong with you? Why are you outside? Oh no, there's a looming person's shadow there. You know what? Some people just don't deserve to survive in horror movies. I don't know what to tell you. Because still, she's not wearing pants. And if you thought drinking pantsless with some creep lumbering around outside the house was stupid, she sparks up a doobie, violating both the rules of horror survival and Airbnb in one go. Terrible. But honestly though, who smokes a joint in a rental house? Especially when you know someone's being weird and trying to sketch you out like they were singing lullabies on the porch. I am losing my damn mind. You know what? Maybe I was a little bit too unfair to the people in Abigail. Maybe I was a little bit too unfair. Maybe they weren't that dumb at all. But to give my heart a little bit of a break, we cut back over to Ryan, who gets jump scared by Rudy the mechanic.
Could have thought you were a car thief.
Hey.
Well, hey, at least you can feel confident that nothing was going to happen to the car overnight. Rudy's got your back. Might also have your head with a tire iron, but He then hits the burger stand to grab them some food, which again just adds to this divide between them and the townsfolk. People from the diner invite him to sit, but he obviously needs to get back, so they assume that he thinks he's too good for them. The people at the food stand clearly don't like him, but also try to give him a pamphlet, which they know he doesn't live here. I don't know why they're giving him a pamphlet, which really just says that after Sunday service, there's a public meeting at the church. So it really just feels like they're trying to make that religious component a much bigger aspect than it was in the original, which I honestly kind of hate. What made The Strangers so good had nothing to do with anything like this, so I don't know why this is the direction they're choosing to go in. But if they're gonna introduce shit, they kind of have to follow through. I'm just so annoyed. I just know that unlike the other Strangers movies that have the actor as the character name for whoever's in the mask, this just has them all listed as doubles, implying that they will reveal who they are and are just using stunt people for this installment. But back at the house, she starts playing pantsless piano, clearly hearing some creaking noises from the stairs, and just goes back to playing with her back turned to it. I just don't understand what's happening in this movie. Because she's really not alone. The smiley mask is suddenly in the chair behind her. There was absolutely no way for him to get into that chair in a creaky old house undetected when he was just being creaky as fuck. Where was he when she was facing that direction that he could suddenly be in the chair the second she's turned back around? He's not a fucking ghost. Whatever, it's creepy, especially because if she just looked up, she'd see his reflection in the mirror. It works, it's good visuals, it's creepy, but then he's also just disapparates just as quickly. The chair's not even rocking. I actually think it would have been creepier if they'd had the chair rocking slightly and she just didn't notice. But that's okay. She has to do another dumb thing and take a shower. We are just taking off all the horror movie things that you shouldn't do that can be excusable when you aren't aware that weird things are happening around you yet. But at this point, someone's been lurking around outside, being a weirdo. Maybe at least wait till your boyfriend gets home to have a shower. Because now Smiley Mask's being a fucking perv who again disappears. Are they poltergeists now? Is that what we're gonna go with? He's not Ghostface. He doesn't get unlimited stat upgrades when he's in the mask. Maybe +5 sneak skills compared to Ghostface's +30. And then the power goes out. Love that. She starts wandering around to find the fuse box. I might have simply just died on the floor and waited for a bit, but she drops her phone, and the second she does, I bet she's gonna pop back up and there's gonna be a creep there. Yup, creepy doll face. I think I might have actually just punched out instinctually, and then we would have gotten into a brawl, and you know what? I think I could take this fucker. We'll just ignore the other two that are lurking around, but if the fight starts before the flight can happen, she's going down. The dumbassery continues though. She gets away and hides it in a room, but doesn't shut off the flashlight. The power's out. I wonder if it's the door that has some light illumination coming out from it is where she might be hiding. At least call 911 while you're sitting there. Jesus Christ. But this is where we get the fake out. There's always at least one, and they held off on it for a little bit. The door opens and it's just Ryan. He somehow got in the house and wasn't calling her name to see where she was or if she was okay with all the lights off. So dumb. And he just doesn't believe that she saw anybody, isn't remotely concerned, just gets the fuse popped back up and blames it on the pot she smoked. Which, fair, but I would not have trusted that immediately and just probably taken the motorcycle back whence they came and slept in the car for the evening. But, even if you weren't going to do that, I would still at least do a little perimeter search because someone has been fucking with them and this isn't their house. There might be other ways in. No time to drag that out though, because we immediately get more knocking. It's the little girl again, and the tough guy starts chasing her down the road before they settle in to eat. Again, they are just really not concerned enough about this person who is progressively harassing them all night. But while they're eating, his very ketchupy mess starts to flip to actual blood and they realize there's a massacred chicken above them. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention there's a bunch of chickens outside, but when did the strangers have time to decorate? But that's all it takes to rapidly spring them to lock all the doors while she's like, I told you someone was in here. But why weren't the doors already locked? Why weren't the doors already locked? Doesn't matter about locks when someone has an axe though. And that like look on his eye, no shit, that was creepy, but I was also trying to like compare eyes to people before I realized it was a stunt double listing, and that probably wouldn't matter. But then to really drive home that they are just being fucked with, he axes open the door to the room they're hiding in and then just leaves.
Why did it stop?
They're fucking with us.
And that's why it's scary. Like they were already in that room and they left you a bunch of notes. But then they hear what sounds like him leaving the house, which I probably wouldn't have fully trusted. But Ryan just starts leaning his head right to that axe hole.
They're gone.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Now, for some reason, Ryan didn't have his phone on him, so they smashed the shit out of it and took hers. And that just feels like the most unrealistic part about this movie. It is so natural for you just like, if there's an emergency, people just grab their phones and run. They just grab your phone and run, you grab your phone and run. Like the fact that both of them didn't have their phones doesn't make sense to me. So they do the logical thing and try to bail out on the motorcycle, only to watch it blow up in front of their faces, so they run back into the house. Also, maybe not the best move, but they end up finding a crawl space to escape from under the house, which is going pretty well until she stabs herself through the hand with a nail. That they for some reason think is a good idea to pull out right in this moment. Like maybe wait till you get to safety first. They clearly just wanted to increase the tension of the strangers potentially finding them under the floorboards, but like, oh my god. And then they don't even try to run away while those people are in the house thinking that they're still in the house too. They just break into the shed. A scary face behind them. How the hell is she already in there? At least there's some logic to this. He knows that this is like a hunting cabin for this guy, so maybe he keeps some guns in here. They also make sure to let us know that he drops his inhaler, so that's definitely gonna be a thing.
It wasn't.
Actually, yeah, future Amanda here really doesn't end up being that big of a deal. But when he tripped and lost the inhaler, he ends up with a limp, and I don't understand what it is about mild tripping causing severe derailment in this movie. Like last dude had a little trip and was just like, that's it for me, man. I'm just gonna wait to be axed. But the shed ends up being super creepy. Like he stumbles upstairs to check for guns and Pinup Face just slinks out at her. It's so creepy. She dives back, which is logical, and then Smiley comes through the fucking window. Effective, good moment despite how stupid everything else is. So she manages to get away only because Ryan does in fact find a shotgun, but it really is just enough to temporarily scare them off. But even though they're the only ones with a firearm in this movie, they're still gonna blow their lead. Because then stupid and terrible things happen. They decide to go back in the house and they hear someone fidgeting with the door from the porch. And I was like, oh shit, her phone is completely missing. She told the guy who owns the place to give her a call to get the fridge fixed. It sounds like keys that he's fidgeting with. Ryan's gonna pop around the corner and kill the owner.
Hey, where's his mask? There's no fucking mask. I think that's the owner, Joe.
Yup, nailed that. I don't even feel like I can take props because that did seem like it was the most obvious thing to happen. That friggin' phone call had been looming the entire movie. Actually, doesn't this also happen in the original? I totally forgot. He calls his buddy to come pick him up and then shoots him by mistake, right? I really hope that no one was hoping not to be spoiled from the original strangers watching this. Maybe that's not what happened. I'm dumb. No time to focus on your guilt though, buddy. You gotta grab those keys and run. And they do it right. They actually check the car before diving in to make sure the killers haven't snuck in there, but you know, they just can't account for the killer's truck materializing out of nowhere to pin them to a tree. So Ryan's leg ends up getting stuck and they have to split up, and too bad Smiley bailed out of the truck before Ryan could shoot him, which is what he should have done the second they started pinning him to the side of the tree instead of having the save yourself conversation. I will say Maya's doing a great job at hiding here. Like, look at her in this pit thing. I assumed that this was a trap at the beginning of the movie when he almost fell into it, and I was just kind of waiting for that to pop up here, but I guess not. We've got a little Peter Millark Jr. on our hands here. Good for her. This does seem to be where they dump the finance guy's body, though. You know, they make sure to have his watch prominently featured there. And this is where that 911 phone call happens. She grabbed the dude who owns the cabin's flip phone, because of course it's a flip phone, and just starts mumbling about an Airbnb in Venus, and hopefully the Venus police aren't in on this and send some help, because it's the only one in town, so that will be the only thing that makes it easy to find. I really assumed that Dollface was going to hear her rustling about and find her in here, but guess not. Not that it matters. She finds her immediately after. This is another moment that kind of pisses me off. Like, it's panning around Maya's face, so I know that something is going to pop up from behind her, but Dollface literally materializes as if she was like sandworming on the ground. Like, I get it. You want it to be tense. You want it to be a little jump scary, but like have some kind of logic. Do better cutting than like, oh yeah, the person's just suddenly there when it was physically physically impossible for them to have been concealed at any point. So now Maya's knocked out and being dragged along the wood floor before it cuts back to Ryan making a huge ruckus trying to find her. I gotta say, moving this finale out of the house is really killing the tension. Like, the house is such a claustrophobic experience. There's just tension around every wall. There's so much that you can do from outside windows to just give you chills. This is where they try to make his asthma a problem, but it's barely an inconvenience. Like, all he does is make a bunch of crinkly noises with a water bottle to use as a makeshift moisture inhaler. And I know that hot water vapor can occasionally help with asthma attack situations, but I really don't think this would work as well as they're making it seem. But whatever, it's fine. This is mostly to just kind of get the smiley mask guy in his direction, even though this isn't when he catches him. Honestly, if they just let him have an asthma attack, it would have been better because he'd be wheezing and that would bring people to him, and then him struggling to breathe might make this next scene slightly more logical to me. He catches Pin up, dead to rights, gun to head, and just doesn't kill her, just pushes for Maya's location, which is fair, but once she starts to give the gun a hand job, you're probably good to at least knock her out with the butt if you weren't ready to kill her yet, because she ain't telling you shit. But obviously her shrieking and his demands just lead Smiley right to them, and he gets knocked out instead. Good job, Ryan, that was your one shot. We're bringing you. Get the hat, Ryan, you get the hat. Yeah, that's right, Ryan, it's time to stop. It's time to act being dumb.
God.
Yeah, no shit they did. No thanks to your dumb boyfriend. So glad they gave us another close-up of the New Balances, though. I wasn't sure if I felt like I needed a new pair of sneakers, but yeah, now I just have this undeniable urge. And this is when Ryan decides it's the perfect time to propose, because till death do us part isn't such a commitment now, is it? I get that this is supposed to feel emotional because earlier they realized that, like, oh my god, we do both want to be married? Oh my god. But of course that's when they stab him, because they've literally just been vibing in front of them this entire time. And they really just drag this out, like they're just trying to hold hands, but once they kick him over, he pretty quickly chokes on his own blood. And here it is. It's the line.
Why are you doing this to her?
Because you're here.
Hey, wait, that's not the line. Because you were home is way more unsettling. And then they stab her and drive off into the morning as the sirens pull up, and they actually manage to save her. I thought the witness children coming across her was a much better ending in the original, but yeah, sure, this is fine. And as I assumed on that last shot, she does survive in the hospital, and we get hit with the "to be continued." But then there's a mid-credit scene, and you think, okay, is this gonna add anything? No, it's very pointless. I have no idea why this just wasn't part of the scene that just happened, because she just wakes up from a dream in the hospital, sits up, and Smiley's on the bed with her. Real or fake? Real or fake? Either way, completely unnecessary. It's basically just a couple of extra seconds of the ending that they just showed us, so I have no idea what the point of separating it was. That's the movie, and oh my god, that was so dumb. There are some really good moments of tension here, which is the only thing putting this above Night Swim and Imaginary, who have nothing going for them. Honestly, I think even if they hadn't been as effective with the tension, I'd still probably have enjoyed this more than those other two movies. They're just not good. They're not even dumb enough to be having fun with them the same way I'm having fun with this one because of how dumb people are. So there's a lot more going for this entertainment-wise here, even if it's not good. But they mostly pulled the best tension moments from the original movie, then made the characters just significantly dumber. According to the director, the next two parts are going to focus on Maya over the course of 4 days following the attack, which is just absurd to me. You needed 3 movies to do that? I feel like there could have been a really cool way to do like chapter 1, then something really big for chapter 2, and then something even bigger for chapter 3. Kind of constantly compounding on it, but like not with the same characters necessarily, or at least not with the same victims. I don't know. I just think this is dumb. Maybe it'll be great, but based on this one, that they essentially had an existing blueprint and still messed up this badly, like, I really doubt it. So I'm just gonna leave you with a little quote from the director. In this case, we see that she survives, and just when she thinks she's going to be okay, things get worse because the strangers just won't give up. So chapters 2 and 3 go in completely different directions than the first chapter, and they become more epic. What do you mean epic? And does it seem like they gave up in this installment? The strangers don't really give up. That is not a trait I have found. What do you mean? And I'm still just very concerned about your choice use of the word epic. Is it a Mr. Beast video? I know you said you wanted to make a movie that would have picked up immediately when the last one came out, but we are actually not in 2008 anymore. They also said that they did a lot of work to make sure that, while filming all 3 movies at the same time, nothing would get lost and you'd still have a very clear view of each installment. But this installment doesn't feel like its own distinct part because there's so many things that they they just sprinkle in there, but not in fun ways, in ways that just make the whole thing feel disconnected. You know what? I just don't know what I expected from a movie written by two dudes with zero horror experience who wrote Due Date. But hey, if they're anything as dumb as this one, probably still be a good time to some extent. But that's gonna do it for the video. Let me know what you guys are thinking down below. What is your favorite Strangers movie, if you like any of them at all? I do still think this is better than a lot of the other horror movies that, maybe not a lot, but a few of the horror movies I've covered this year, even though it is so incredibly dumb. That's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members and Surfshark for sponsoring the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing, and my other social medias are listed down below if you're interested in following me there. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later.